In this video, we'll try to first understand viral epidemics and then viral pandemics, because both of them have their own way of moving about. And I think I'll make it slightly more India centric because we have as a nation something very critical to learn from the current corona epidemic or other pandemic, and how we are responding to it. So to start with, epidemics are not something very complicated to understand, because they are nothing but slightly, not slightly, but a socially rather extrapolated version of an average viral disease that you and I can have. So this is one of the most important dimension of viral diseases that we have to understand, and that is that virus is not the prerequisite for the viral disease. See, let's understand there are infinite number of viruses all around us. So why are we not constantly ill? Why is the world not constantly experiencing an epidemic or a pandemic? The reason is very simple. Virus is not the prerequisite. Lowering of our immune system response is the prerequisite for us getting ill. And if we extrapolate it to the social level, it is very easy to understand that when the society has a lower immunity level, you have an epidemic. Maybe when the entire globe has a lower immunity level, then you have a pandemic. Now, if it is as simple as that, what is the way we have to deal with this scenario? And for that, we have to really understand what is one of the key forces that govern our immune system response. So yes, we all become expert on coronavirus. So we all know that there are comorbid conditions like diabetes, basically any, say, condition, constant malaise that you have, or any chronic condition that you have, your body is busy fighting that and your immune system is on the lower side. So that is maybe the way the lowering of immune system happens as per our existing understanding. So if you go by the existing understanding of epidemic, the belief is that a virus jumps between species, a new virus arrives, and that virus we have no, our immune system is not ready for it and we can't recognize it, so it can become a threatening epidemic as we are told. But in reality, tons of viruses keep jumping across species, and every virus arrives, it doesn't kill everybody. Devastation taking place when a virus jumps a species. So for an epidemic to happen, there is one very, very important thing, that it has to happen in convergence, or the jumping of the virus has to be timed with lowering of immune system response of the entire society. So we have been having some epidemics of influenza, but I think the one I would use for this short video is the Spanish flu, because everybody has been reading about it, and it was an incredibly disastrous episode in recent human history. So it is well recorded. About 50 crore people were expected to have been infected of, say, 1.180 crore that the planet population was, and the death ranges are 5 crore to 2 crore. Somebody says India lost about a crore of people. So, but a lot of people died, in short. And what is maybe the most noticeable part that is recognized about this is that young people died. Now, when you say young people died in Spanish flu today, you would not really get the real picture, because you have a you're living in a completely different world than when Spanish flu happened. So let's get back to one most astounding fact about us, which we have not recognized, is that we have almost doubled our lifespan in less than 3 generations. So prior to Spanish flu, the average lifespan of the world was 31 years. That means that Spanish flu killing young people is not really surprising, because they are mostly young people. But anyway, that was not the way it has been looked at. It has been looked at as if there was a massive immune system response. It's called immune system storm, and it led to people having all kind of complications and they died. I'm fine with any of these pictures because they are something that we really can't clinically, say confirm. So it's a speculation like any other. But as all of these are speculations, I would like to invite you to have another speculation. So, Spanish flu was world's first recorded pandemic. But that was not the only world's first thing happening at that time. There was another even bigger world's first that was happening. And that was the period. 1918 was the time when the world's first world war took place. Now, we can look at these two as separate events, or maybe we can consider that, one led to another. People, it was called trench flu also because people were in trenches and falling ill and young soldiers were dying. But I have another model for you to consider. So if you look at a war and try to map the fear in the population, obviously wars cause fear. I hope that we don't dispute on that. So who would be more scared? People who are fighting, people who are on the frontier, so young people. Then second, I would guess that would be women because they are home alone, scared. Men folks have gone, so they are second most scared people. And then old people are scared, but they are not that scared because they have seen the world and they are not really that bothered. So if you map the death pattern of Spanish flu, it matches exactly the fear pattern of the society. So now, we are it's not a very, what do you call, outrageous statement to make if I say that, the psychosomatic dimension of human body is well recognized in the context of fear and how that impacts the immune system. So fear, rather I would say stress that a human experiences would lower his immune system response. So it's very easy to understand that, if there's a society living under fear, the society would have a lower immune system response. So now it is not that difficult to understand that whenever a society is living under fear, you have a situation where if a virus arrives at that time, you would have an epidemic in that society. So that is maybe the mapping that we have not really bothered to do, but there is a very possible mapping that societies under fear are those who have maybe epidemics happening to them. But then what about pandemic? So this is where I would like to bring the coronavirus pandemic that we are going through, because it is a very interesting pattern. It started in China, and you expect China being such a dense country and so many of these issues, a lot of people dying. But no, that didn't happen. It moved to Europe and it moved to America, and then people started dying like flies. I would still not believe they are currently influenza deaths are still holding an upper hand than coronavirus. But yeah, people apparently we have to believe that people are dying in both these subcontinents where virus is gone. So what must have happened here if I bring my fear model to this entire situation? So what has happened today is that you have, I would again say something which is more dangerous than any pandemic, that you have an information pandemic. That means that information moves well before any virus can arrive. So what has happened is that the fear of epidemic moves into societies and paves way for the actual epidemic to move in. So if you look at the overall death pattern of the world today, Asia and Africa, who apparently should be more susceptible to this, are not really showing those kind of death figures, especially amongst the masses which don't have access to good healthcare, facility. And the only possible reason that I can think of is that they're living in just enough fear to be scared by an epidemic. Then they are actually not as connected to the information superhighway that is created. So, cocooned in the comforts of Western society, people are prone to get a lot more scared by the news of an epidemic than maybe people living in rural India or rural Africa, and hence their immune systems are not compromised by the stress or the fear of this epidemic that they have. So that is one possible model to really look at this. And when you look at that model, some other interesting things also can come up is the way some of these diseases have cropped up and are causing so much of damages, especially in the Western society, which are which I would say cancer or autoimmune disorders. There is maybe a very strong correlationship with the kind of this pathological fear, pathological desire to have hygiene that they have. So they are constantly under stress, and that is also counterproductive in the way their immune system are not getting exposed to pathogens. So they are very dumb immune systems, and when the immune system is dumb, it not only leads to viral infections or things like that. Maybe there better hospitals take care of that, but then obviously cancers are or autoimmune disorders are also actually linked with your immune system performance. So all of us have cancer cells, but they are identified by our immune systems and they are killed, but your immune system is compromised. That doesn't happen. So the dimension that we have been looking at till now, that we are not really mapped on epidemics, is the role that fear plays and the kind of impact it could have in how an epidemic unfolds. So if you set that world aside and come to India with this understanding, then you really get a very, very scary realization that we have used nothing but fear to fight this epidemic. So, we have actually created a situation which itself is potentially capable of starting an epidemic, because this level of fear obviously leads to huge amount of suppression of cause of stress and suppression of immune system across the society. So we are almost becoming getting ready to have an epidemic, and then a pathogen is moving in. So the more we scare people, the worse our, we are just amplifying the epidemic as we are going forward with it, using fear as an as a tool to control human behavior. So if India really is interested in shortening the length of this epidemic or mitigating the damage it can bring, I think the primary focus needs to be re-establishing the confidence of people and removing the fear, because till the fear would not go, until the stress would not go, nobody's immune system is going to perform as well it would be. Let's be very honest. You and I sitting in India and reading those news and watching those TV programs, our immune systems are substantially compromised than they would have been the day when there was no news like this. So fear and epidemics are actually completely related and can be mapped over each other. And India, of all the nations, need to really understand that we started with everything going our way. We are the youngest population, our summer was moving in. There was no need for the fear and the panic that we used as an instrument to mitigate this epidemic, but we already done it. So I think now the time is that the state wakes up to this correlationship between fear and epidemic and starts working on mitigation of fear more than mitigation of the virus. So we have to have that as a first prefer target than anybody anything else. So fear mitigation and removal of the stigma that is attached to this virus is currently the primary priority that Indian state should be looking at. Thank you. So I would be doing the next one on something slightly more interesting, and that is on how pandemics unfold themselves in a society. Thank you.